Hello, you're watching BiTV European Service. I'm Ines Berger, and today we welcome Keith Breslauer, who is managing partner and founder of Patron Capital. Hello, Keith. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, how has your assessment of the European investment market evolved since the beginning of the pandemic?
Sure. So, when it all first hit and we had this sort of extreme shutdown and lockdown, the natural reaction was to look back at history and say, what happened before and how would it apply to here? And the natural conclusion would be we have a shock to the system. We do not have a system that is over levered, and therefore when that shock lifts, things will be okay and should come back to normal. And that was basically the approach that we used in terms of how we thought about the market and how we thought about pricing. And then what happened, of course, is that you had these waves, and you had two different things going on. You have government policy in different countries having different aspects and experiences, and that has different results. And secondly, you have these variants, which are quite scary, and it's unclear on what's going to happen, combined with, of course, the vaccine and the rollout. So how it's evolved, I would say, is initially we thought we have a 3 or 4 month shutdown. We'd come out of it, it'd be okay, everything would be fine, and the rebound would be okay, but wouldn't be as, let's say, as strong. With the second and third shutdown, what we're finding, and it's research is predicted by Capital Economics, that the amount of savings that consumers have is massive. They're not spending money, they're not out, and therefore there is a general view that while the pandemic has lasted longer than people expected, hopefully the rebound will be quite significant. So people like Goldman Sachs and other firms are predicting a very strong rebound. So our evolution has been that things have been delayed a bit longer, that we have to assume the time for recovery will happen. The emotional or mental scarring of the virus has been very significant for people, and on a personal basis as well for me. You lose aunts or uncles or elderly people that but the positive is that with the vaccine, the recovery should happen relatively quickly, assuming the rollout goes efficiently. So that would be my kind of general perspective.
Thank you for that. And so Patron Capital has recently announced the closing, the 844 million euros closing of its sixth fund. And given the current situation, what will be your strategy with this vehicle?
Yeah, so we're a property investor, and we're also unusual that we invest in companies that are backed by property. And our focus tends to be Western Europe as a primary focus. And we try to invest in assets that we think we can make a difference. So we've been around for 20 years as a business. I've been in Europe for almost 30 years, and we've been investing in France since 1994. I personally have been investing in France in 1994, and our very first investments and our very first fund were in France. So we're a big believer in the market, and we think it's very interesting. What the arbitrage, I think, to some degree, is in offices, to some aspects, in residential, to some aspects. Where isn't it going to be as all bad as people think, and that with a very low rate environment, the ability for financing and for individuals to participate will continue. So I would say office and residential would be a key aspect of our strategy. We, like everyone, we like logistics, but it's very expensive. And separately, we are clearly looking at hotels because they could be so distressed. And also, we've owned over 60 hotels or more in our history. So we're not afraid of the hotel space, but it's something we are looking at as well. So I would say mixed bag of office, resi, and maybe leisure on the extreme, and then the odd logistic asset might pop up.
So finally, Keith, I have one last question. Talking about the French market, how is your strategy going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the French market is somewhat tricky in that people just don't think of Paris, but actually, obviously, it's a massive country, and there's a lot of different regions and a lot of different aspects. We have invested throughout the country. We invested in places like Nantes and Toulouse and Lyon and Haute-Savoie and Chamonix, and also Paris. So we've been pretty much across the market, and our approach really is to look at the country as a country and to focus on where there's a demand and a supply imbalance, where there's good demand or continued demand, but there's simply not a lot of supply. And there's various parts of Paris that actually have that today. And if we could fix an asset or develop an asset or clean up an asset or refurbish the property, we could do that. We'll do that. And also in the regions, we're very interested in the regions. We've owned office buildings and industrial throughout the country and residential, and we'll invest selectively as a business in those different markets. I mean, lastly, I'm a fan of Chamonix, as some people know, and of the Haute-Savoie. So we're very active developers, or our partners are very active developers in Haute-Savoie, and we invest with them. And I think at one point we're probably one of the largest developers in Chamonix, as an example. So we're very keen on France. Generally, it is a key market for us as a part of our strategy. And historically, we've invested hundreds of millions of euros there across all the different funds. And we've actually operated a public company, or we were behind a public company at some point. So we're keen on France. It's a key part of our strategy. And I would say we might put 10 to 30% of our fund in France over the next 3 years.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Keith, and thank you all for watching BiTV.